Hello, everybody. Zon gets 134 here.
And as always, I'm Average Joe Squad.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Hyphen. The show
we're having a sleepover.
Yeah, we are technically, because we're shooting these all in a row, real late at night. And welcome to Remember the Hyphen, the show where we look at comic books, movies, and everything in between. And welcome back to Spider-Miss, everybody. The time of the year we talk about Spider-Man the entire damn month. Even if you want us to talk about something else. No, we're not going to talk about Hawkeye.
Yeah, I'm in fucking control here, motherfuckers. So we're in control here, damn it.
No, we will probably talk about Hawkeye at some point, but not this month. We're going to probably wait until January. And even then, it's going to be until mid-January, because we always take 2 weeks off. But anyway, so tonight's episode of Spider-Miss, a certain movie's coming out, which hopefully this will be out before said movie comes out. And yes, it will be actually a part of Spidey-Miss, since, why not?
Why the fuck not? It just works out fine for us.
There's going to be a bunch of villains in this movie. 5 to be precise, although I'm pretty sure everyone's going to assume that there's going to be some special 6th villain that's going to show up, just because...
It's probably going to be fucking Mysterio. Before anybody says, but he died in the last one. You know how many times I've watched this bastard die and shit? I don't believe he's dead.
I watched this motherfucker shoot himself in the head in Daredevil Guardian Devil. And he came back during Civil War. That motherfucker don't stay dead. He's died of cancer like 6 or 7 times. I don't believe he's dead. But anyway. So basically, we're going to be talking about the various villains of No Way Home. And I know a lot of you are like, well, we've seen these villains before. I more want to talk about like them specifically comic book wise to kind of give people an idea of who they are as characters. Maybe talk about some stories that you can find easily. And just overall kind of discuss these characters. Because, while these movies are great to talk about, they don't really give you everything about these characters in some way, shape, or form. So, we'll probably go in order of least interesting to most interesting. Mostly because, let's be honest, the top 2 villains in this movie, everyone knows who they are, and it'll just be easier to let them have their own thing at the end. So, starting off, probably the villain that, debatably probably is going to be the least interesting, even though he's going to be the most interesting visually, Sandman.
Yeah, because out of all the villains we've really seen come up with for this movie, like either through the trailer, having interviews with the cast or stuff, yeah. Sandman is probably the one we've arguably seen the least of, along with the Lizard.
Yeah, the most...
But, I don't know whether to take that as he's not going to have a really major... compelling role like he kind of did in Spider-Man 3, because yeah. I don't think many people would argue me when I say that Sandman probably had the most compelling story of the 3 villains in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder just how they're going to make him work, because he technically wasn't really evil at the end of the 3rd movie, He
also didn't die at the end of that movie either.
Well, I guess the interview I saw, I can't remember if it was with Feige or somebody else, said that just because you didn't see it in that, they die later on.
Which I'm like,
okay, I
thanks.
guess.
Like, I didn't really think Flint deserved to die, because he really wasn't that evil. But
yeah, but I don't know. So I think a lot of the attention in this movie is definitely going to be centered on either Doc Ock or Green Goblin.
Yeah.
So I kind of just wonder how much they're actually going to do with Sandman. Because, as you said, he's probably one of the most... interesting
to look at.
Out of all the Spider-Man's rogue gallery, I would definitely say he's probably one of the more visually interesting to look at.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're really gonna give him a huge fleshed out story in this. I could be surprised. I could be, but I don't know. I kind of feel like they won't.
I actually guarantee you, we are not going to see him in his human form at all in the movie. I guarantee you he's always going to just look like a big giant sand monster the entire time.
I almost wonder if maybe they'll kind of reference the whole... Remember when he was Mudman, when him and Hydra Man?
Oh, got...
Yeah, I almost wonder if maybe they'll do something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, especially because...
It'd be interesting... One of the things, and this really isn't just for Sam, it's for all of them, I'm really interested to see what they do to kind of flesh out stuff with these villains, because I saw another interview... where I think it was Feige again. I think he said that he consulted Raimi and Webb for doing this stuff. So I almost wonder where they go with all these characters. What is mentioned as happening off screen that we're going to hear about?
So getting into it, kind of talking, because we will be bringing up comic book stuff along with these, but because mostly because like a lot of these characters don't really have like huge amount to them. So Flint Marko, otherwise known as the Sandman, was a petty bank thief who was mainly small time. He mostly stole from banks. He would break into them at night. Was an ordinary man until he was chased by the cops into basically a radiation testing ground for the military. Particularly, they were testing sand and how it could absorb radiation. Unfortunately, he fell into a vat of radiated sand, and in doing so, it changed his metaphysiology, basically making it that his body, every single molecule of his body, can turn into sand. And he can also make himself bigger and control sand that wasn't originally a part of his body. He first fought Spider-Man in, I want to say it was Amazing 4 or 5? I can't remember exactly, but basically it happened after the issue where Spider-Man fights one of his most daring and evil villains ever, the Living Brain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of those weird one-off things where... like Amazing 2 where he fucking fights aliens that just show up for no fucking reason. Which they let her retcon into that. It was just a big con done by Mysterio anyways. And this was before he became Mysterio. But, basically, Spider-Man comes across Flint using his sand powers to steal money, and Spider-Man tries, doing the typical thing where he just, starts punching the dude's lights out, and he just crumbles into sand. I argue he's one of the first villains that Spider-Man had to think scientifically to beat. This wasn't like Vulture from Amazing 3, where he just was an old dude with a flight pack, and Spider-Man had to just trick him because he's an old man. Spider-Man had to really think out of the box to defeat Sandman. In this, he actually manages to defeat Sandman by tricking him into going into his sand form and sucking him up with an industrial vacuum cleaner. Which is hilariously one of the more funnier times that Sandman has been captured. Sandman is actually very interesting because I actually argue he's one of the few villains that Spider-Man has that's like basically immortal. Because basically nothing can harm him, because the moment something tries to, like, say, he gets shot at, his body actually reacts and it turns him into sand to keep him from getting damaged by it. It's also actually very interesting how versatile his sand is, because he can actually make it from being just, grains that fall apart to, like, he can make it into, like, stone that he can use to, like... Because most of his means of attack is usually making his fists really hard like rock, or creating, like, spiky balls, or, like, brick walls. And basically he tries to just crush Spider-Man. That's usually his modus operandi in combat. He's not one of the more brighter of Spider-Man's rogues. Your opinion on Sandman?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, he's always been one of the more very visually interesting characters, not just in the movies, but definitely in the comics too.
Yeah.
Growing up, I never really read too much with him in it. The stuff I really had access to was... I know he's in that first Sinister Six comic, and I did read that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw stuff about him through the Ultimate Guide, but he was always kind of one of those characters that, like, you heard about, but you never really saw, like, at least with where I was at the time. Like, I want to say he's maybe mentioned in the PS1 game at some point, but we never see him.
He shows up in 2, though.
But I never played 2, because 2 never came to the PC.
Which he's hard, because he's like Rhino, where the only way you can defeat him is by smashing fire hydrants to make him wet.
Yeah.
Because he actually can't... whenever his sand gets wet, he actually can't unform his body into sand. And if he is sand at that time, it gets all muddy and he can't actually operate it. Because one of the more common ways to defeat him is to basically fill him with water, because it makes it so that his sand can't break apart. And of course, one of the more traumatic things that ever happened to Flint was when he got into a fight with Hydro Man. Basically him, but if you could turn into water. Which, I'm like, I want to be the fly in the room when they're creating Hydro Man. Okay, guys, we need
a guy like this. Yeah, let's just do Sandman, but do him as water.
But basically, the two of them fight because they basically get into like this big dick measuring contest about who's more awesome. Which, sadly, I'd actually argue Hydro Man, just because water has so much more
power to it.
Although Spider-Man's often defeated him by just making him evaporate or freezing him. But basically, Sandman and Hydro Man fight, and in doing so, merge into one single being, a giant mud monster that Spidey dubbed Mudman. Which I want to say he defeated by drying the creature out, which caused him to disintegrate into dust. Which actually kind of killed Hydro Man and Sandman for a brief time, which led him into, once he reformed, to change his ways, and he actually ended up becoming a member of the Avengers for a brief period. There was actually a time where Sandman was a good guy. In fact, he also worked for Silver Sable, too. Because, honestly, Flint is not really the most evil of Spider-Man's villains. Dude's just a petty thief, shocker.
And then with the success of the with how popular that origin that they used for him in 3 was, then they go back and retcon.
Yeah, they gave him they gave him a kid, which they actually didn't do until I want to say when Dan Slott wrote the character. Although admittedly that was only 2 or 3 years after Spider-Man 3. But basically, for those of you who haven't watched Spider-Man 3, or if it's been a while, in that Flint was stealing because his daughter was dying of a disease. He'd always been a thief, but now he was doing it because he had a good reason to. We're not going to talk about him being involved with the burglar that killed Uncle Ben, because honestly that shit was stupid when they put that in there anyways. And even then, they try to imply that he was the guy who shot Uncle Ben, but actually he was just the guy working with the burglar, and the burglar got jumpy and shot him anyways. But basically, during a run after stealing, he falls into this vat where I forget exactly what the test is, but they're testing radiation of some sort.
It was just an experiment. I don't want to say it was military.
But basically this thing works, and his body appears to be disintegrated, but in actuality it's his body had merged with the sand, and he became a Sandman. The daughter thing did kind of actually was a thing. And just to finish my thing before we get into about Sandman being good, Sandman was good for a very long time until the actual second story that they ever did with the Sinister Six, because surprisingly Marvel never really dipped into the Sinister Six as much back in the 80s and 90s because they didn't want to run the idea into the ground. So we actually didn't get a sequel to the original Sinister Six until 94, I want to say, with the Return of the Sinister Six, where Doc Ock, who now has adamantium arms, coerces Sandman into fighting for him, which leads into the second story where he gets turned into glass by Dr. Octopus, and then when he gets shattered during a fight, he turns into this giant glass monster and brutally scars Dr. Octopus with his glass shards, which I'm like, yeesh. But basically, after the death of Kraven, they tried getting Venom for the Sinister Six in another story. Which, again, Sandman was forced to work with him again. And during this, Venom took a bite out of Sandman, which actually killed him for some reason. Or he was dying.
There's actually a picture of that in the Spider-Man Ultimate Guide by the
where
he's I remember seeing that as a kid and always being like, what the hell?
Yeah, it basically causes him to be unable to keep his form. And eventually he comes after Spider-Man, and Spider-Man thinks it's because he's going to try and kill him again. But basically, Sandman's like, I want you to deliver a message to my mother, telling her I'm sorry that I was such a failure as a son and that I love her. And then he dies, or supposedly dies. Eventually, Sandman puts himself back together, but unfortunately, due to the trauma of being bitten by Venom and coming back to life, he sadly lost the retcon where he was a good guy and went back to being a villain again. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, it wasn't really. I don't think that big of a loss, because who really remembers Sandman being an Avenger?
Yeah. When you tell most people that, and they're just kind of like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. The retcon that stuck more, however, was again the Spider-Man 3. There's actually, I take it back, there's actually 2 versions of them bringing Sandman's daughter into the story. The probably less well-known would be Spider-Man Reign, where they made one of the characters in there, which was a girl that was leading these rebels. She was actually Sandman's daughter. And it doesn't really matter because she dies anyways, and it causes Sandman to turn against the... They're not called the Sinister Six, and they're called like the Sinner Six is what they're called in Spider-Man Reign, but which is the fucking dumbest name possible. The only way it could be worse is if there were 12 of them, like the Sinister 12 when Norman created that back in Marvel Knights. The other one, which admittedly I'm talking about Dan Slott, but like this is actually, I argue, one of the better stories Dan wrote, which I meant known as Michaela's Castle. There we find out that although she's not dying of cancer like she is in the Michaela was a girl that Sandman had a daughter with this woman, and of course, knowing that he's a dangerous criminal, she never lets him see Michaela. Eventually leading him to, I guess, kidnap her, but she seems willingly to go with him. I think it's because like her mom is in like an abusive relationship with some guy or something like that. I can't remember because it's been forever since I read the story, but basically, Sandman takes Michaela to this island out in the New York Harbor because for some reason there's like 800 different little tiny islands in the New York Harbor in these comics that like are just chilling out there. I don't know why they never... Someone's like, there's probably a supervillain over there. Should we investigate that? Nah. But
it's out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah. But basically, Sandman creates like this whole kingdom for her out of sand, and he has all these different versions of himself, which leads into Spider-Man having to rescue her because she's kidnapped. But it ends with like Michaela getting like... Basically, Sandman gets like sent to jail, and Michaela like hates Spider-Man. It's kind of an interesting story, especially because a lot of it's told from Michaela's point of view, where she tells this like fairy tale about it. But like I said, I think Sandman is an interesting character. The problem is there's not a lot of really good stories with him. The best I could recommend was probably the original Sinister Six story or Amazing Four, whichever issue the Sandman first appeared in. Because a lot of the other stories he's in, usually he's a secondary character. Like that time he has that stupid ass looking armor, the one where Spider-Man gets blasted in the ass that everyone.
Yeah, memes. I remember that. That was that one. It's a meme.
Yeah.
Basically.
But my God, that outfit looks stupid on him. It is like...
It does. It looks absolutely fucking stupid.
It doesn't even like show what he does as a supervillain. But yeah, any final thoughts before we move on to the next guy?
Nah, I think I've said all my piece on that. But like I said, I wonder what they'll do with him in the movie. I don't think they're going to give him a whole lot, honestly.
Because I don't know if they're getting his actor back.
I think they said they are, but I'm not sure. Because I heard Sony wants to develop a Sandman solo movie now.
So moving on to Max, our old buddy Max Dillon, a.k.a. Electro.
I got some thoughts. They actually made him look fucking good in this one.
They actually did.
Because, I'm sorry, that design he had in TASM 2 was the stupidest shit I've ever witnessed for that character.
Yeah, well, because to be fair, which I'm not being completely fair, but I'm pretty sure the studio's like, do not use his classic outfit, go with the ultimate design. Because the ultimate design, he's basically, like, constantly blue. And to be fair, in the Ultimate comics, he didn't look bad. But, like, he has, like, a suit. Like, he's supposed to be, like, an assassin for the Kingpin. This Electro looks like ass. Like, he really looks bad. Like, for one, like, they don't make it so that, like, there's, like, electricity all around him. It's more like his skin's glowing, so it looks really shitty.
Yeah, so they thankfully fixed that with this. I really like the design they went with.
Yeah, especially like the electric mask he makes that looks like his old.
Yeah, I really like that. I hope they keep that frequently because that looks awesome, honestly.
And yeah, I know
it's a nice little nod to the classic costume.
Yeah, and I know people are gonna be like, "Well, blue it makes more sense because lightning is normally blue or white."
We're talking about a comic book movie, guys. It doesn't have to make fucking sense like that.
Yeah, like, if you're gonna be in that, then you should be like, well, if someone got doused with radiated sand, they wouldn't turn into a Sandman. They turn into Tumor Man because they'd be full of tumors and cancer. So
I'm sure they'd be dead.
Yeah, they'd also
be
dead.
You'd be dead within like I want to say an hour.
Also, Electro's origin from Amazing Spider-Man, that's not what happened to him. Max Dillon was originally an electrician. Well, okay, they got that part right in Amazing.
Yeah, except in the comics, he got struck by lightning while he was working on a pole.
And basically, he had invented this harness that was supposed to prevent him from getting electrocuted when he was, like, working on electric poles. For some reason, that harness, instead of, like, the electric killing him, grant him the ability to turn his body's his nervous system electricity into.
And I want to say that was a
lightning.
retcon, because that was not how it was in the original story.
Okay. Well, I thought the harness was a thing in the story.
I don't think it is. I think I think they retconned that later to make have it make a little more sense.
Fair enough.
I could swear that's not how it is in the original one.
No, that's fair. Maybe I'm thinking.
It's just literally he just gets hit by lightning and he just fucking lives.
Even thinking about Spectacular Spider-Man when they bring up the harness. I don't remember, but regardless, he gets struck by lightning, and in the comic version, apparently has no real reason to not fucking die. Which I don't understand how that works, because unlike radiation...
Oh, I don't know. It's a comic book. They were just coming up with something.
By the 70s, everyone knew what lightning did to people, but... And so basically, Max Dillon, instead of becoming the world's greatest electrician because he can't, he can control electricity, it's like, I'm gonna steal from banks.
Weird flex, but okay.
And so became one of Spider-Man's more deadlier foes. I say that just because, like, motherfucker can generate lightning. Of course he's really deadly. In fact, one of the first times he ever came in contact with Spider-Man, he just let Spider-Man touch him, and because he's naturally charged with electricity, almost kills Spider-Man purely by letting him touch him. Yeah, Electro is probably one of the more deadly foes of Spider-Man just because he is literally the Lord of Lightning. There's not really a lot of, again, with much like Sandman, there's not really a lot I can say to him. Probably one of the more interesting things I know about him is he once kidnapped this little kid who got bit by a plague rat in California and got himself infected with the plague. There's a story I read where basically Peter goes out to California because, like, he's working with, the Daily Bugle, and he wants to rescue this little boy because he realizes Electro kidnapped him. Because I guess he's, like, a government official's kid. I can't remember exactly. Oh, no, he is a government's kid. S.H.I.E.L.D. gets involved, and they send Captain fucking America in.
That sounds really fucking stupid, but okay.
Well, because, like...
That sounds actually fucking dumb.
Well, because, like, I want to see Electro's working with, like, terrorists or something like that.
Okay,
like,
that makes a little more sense.
I think. I cannot... Oh, no, he works with terrorists, but he's like, no, I want ransom money. And so basically, like, Cap and him go in. Cap actually, I think, isn't inoculated for bubonic plague because apparently, like, the super soldier serum gives him, like, a wicked immune system. Poor Spider-Man has to get, like, a bunch of shots in his ass, like, at the end of the story because, like, he talks about how he's like, I'm not going to be able to sit down for a week. Although I think his spider power actually does give him, like, a stronger immune system. It takes a lot for him to get sick. Although I do remember again, talking about Dan Slott, in Grim Hunt, he actually was, like, he was, like, sick with the swine flu during that. Topical. But, basically, Electro starts coughing and hacking throughout halfway through, and he thinks Cap is lying until he realizes he's super sick. And so he was actually hiding out in a power plant because, like, I know one of his later stories, he figured he could make himself stronger by, like wiring himself to an electrical plant and siphoning off New York's power supply. Basically, he's like, oh no, I'm dying of the plague. I know. I'll just overcharge myself with electricity from the power plant until I fucking overload it and explode. And it looks like Electro dies in the fight, but obviously he doesn't, because there would be more and more stories with him. But, basically, like, the only other story I can think of that really has any sort of interest for him would be, sadly, the Dan Slott story, his story during Grim Hunt, where he gave Electro cancer. And he also gave him a really stupid redesign where instead of having the mask, he tattooed the electricity onto his face.
Yeah, that's dumb.
And he...
one of Dan Slott's crimes, I'll just add to the list.
And he uses electricity to destroy the Daily Bugle, which is why the Daily Bugle's, like, wasn't a paper for a long time, was because, like, way Jonah was removed from it because, like, he was basically getting so stressed out he was having heart attacks. And the Daily Bugle became, like, an internet paper. It didn't matter anyways, because then Peter got blacklisted because, like, oh, it was revealed he faked all his photographs. And I'm like...
Well, he was dead for a long time, and, like, they recently brought him back. Like Kindred brought him back.
Oh yeah.
But like, they just haven't done much with him. Kindred brought a couple people back. Like
the Sin Eater.
Craven's alive again.
Yeah. Oh no, he was alive for after Grim Hunt.
Yeah, because he's on the latest issue. He's alive again.
That's right, because he also died during Spencer's run again.
Yeah, but he's alive again now. He's fighting Ben in the latest issue of Amazing.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
But they have a new character playing Elektra now that is a female, and
that's right. There was a female Elektra for a while.
Her name is, that's what I was looking up. I was double checking.
Like,
Francine Fry.
I was like, because they can't call her Elektra because that's taken.
No, she's Elektra.
No, I meant like they couldn't like make her female and call her Elektra.
Oh, okay.
Because that's taken.
I didn't hear that. I heard Elektra.
No, sorry, I was.
She's Electro now. I'm pretty sure that she's still using that name.
Honestly, if Elektra comes back, she should just call herself Francine Fry as a villain because that's still a pretty good emphasis on what she does.
Yeah, because like I said, they haven't done really anything with Max since he came back. So it's just kind of interesting that they've gone with this newer version of the character because, like, my comic book box, she's the Elektra that's on it.
It kind of makes sense seeing as how originally in the MC2 universe, I know that Elektra has a daughter that shows up for an issue. Then, to be fair, Spider-Man has had a really hard time with having female villains. The only one I think that's really ever stuck was the female Beetle that they have in Superior Foes of Spider-Man. That's more just because she's honestly a really entertaining character.
You're telling me that characters like Belladonna just didn't prosper?
No, because the only female villain that Spider-Man technically has is the White fucking Rabbit, and who the fuck knows who that is except us?
Yeah.
Well, and technically Bride of Venom, but let's be honest, Bride of Venom doesn't count.
But moving back to the movie,
yeah,
we spent enough time explaining that. Like I said, I really like the redesign they went with for him in this movie. I think it looks better. It looks. What I've seen in the trailer, he looks really good.
Yeah, he does look really good.
I'm really glad they gave him a chance, like Jamie Foxx. They gave him an attempt to basically redeem himself after the last movie.
Yeah,
it's like I'm excited to see what they do with him. He's had a lot of presence in the trailers, so I'm kind of curious if he's going to be like the third big villain.
Yeah, I think
after Ock and Goblin.
I think a lot of that is because they want to show that we got Jamie Foxx back, and we're not going to give him that shitty design that we gave him.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, I think they really just wanted to show off, like, just, again, like, the visual effects that we're going to get. Because, like, as much as as much as I don't really dislike the other two MCU Spider-Man movies, I have problems with them. And I liked stuff. I honestly, I think I like the villain of Homecoming a little bit more than, which is sad because I really like Mysterio in that movie. But let's be honest, the fact that it's all about wanting to get revenge on fucking Tony. Yeah, I know Vulture in Homecoming, his whole thing is he wants to steal from Tony. At least there, it's not completely revenge driven because he also wants to make sure his men get money. I'm just more happy that like we're getting like actual supervillains for Peter to fight instead of dudes who are using gadgets. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I don't dislike Vulture or Mysterio.
But it's like, come on, Spidey's got such a great rogues gallery of people that are actual fucking supervillains.
Yeah, well, because it's like I want to see Peter actually get his powers tested against someone stronger than him, because like most of Spider-Man's foes are arguably stronger than him in some way, shape, or form. Because again, like Electro is so interesting because like Peter can't just punch him, or he'll die. Like he's one of the reasons why Peter invented the rubber suit that he has in one of the later stories. But yeah, like I said, I hope that they do something interesting with Electro because man, he sucks in Amazing 2. Like, because like he's like the villain that's
a birthday party.
Well, he's like the big villain on the poster, and he has less really screen time and role than
Harry does.
Than Harry or even the Rhino. Okay, more screen time than Rhino, but like
I can hear Brian screaming already about like, no man, they fucked me over on Rhino.
Yeah, but at least Rhino got to actually look like he's supposed to fucking look.
Not really.
No, not really.
That design in TASM 2 is complete dog shit.
Hey, you guys like Transformers? We put some in your Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, no thanks.
Well, especially because it's not really even a good Transformer, it's just a fucking Rhino that can stand up on two legs. Anyway, Like I said, I wish I could recommend you stories with Electro. There's not really a lot.
Probably the origin one from Amazing.
Yeah. Amazing, and again, the Sinister Six story that he's in, because he's one of the original members. Okay.
Hopes for him in this movie?
What's that?
Hopes for him in this movie from you?
I at least hope he gets to have a cool fight. Like, I hope... I actually kind of hope maybe him and Andrew get to actually have a decent fight with each other. Maybe even we get to see Electro be like...
Yeah, that's assuming they're in it. I mean, everybody on the planet is basically fucking assuming they are now at this point that Toby and Andrew are in this movie.
Especially given... Because we didn't talk about it. Given the Brazilian trailer shows the lizard leaping at Spidey and getting hit by fucking nothing in the air.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there. I'm like... Someone's like, well, maybe it's Ant-Man. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. That is the worst.
No. That
is the worst counter argument I've ever heard in my life.
Especially because he's too busy doing shit with Kang in Quantumania.
Yeah, I'm just like, no. Like, something was scrubbed out of that trailer.
No, yeah. Like, especially because, like, there's
been telling that same night, remember, that got yanked off the internet.
It got yanked.
Because I sent you the link.
Yeah, and then literally when I got home, it was fucking gone. Like, Like, that doesn't happen unless it actually is important and is a leak. But,
or it's just somebody overlooked something in the editing process.
Or something in the editing process. But, like, well, I mean more like leaking that, like, clearly wasn't supposed to get out. Like, regardless of if it was done on purpose or not. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for Electro. Do you want to give the origin for Lizard?
Yeah, sure. Because I actually really like Lizard.
Yeah, I do too.
I even really kind of liked him in TASM.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the TASM interpretation wasn't that great, but I mean, it was kind of good. It was okay. But basically, Lizard is he's actually Dr. Kurt Connors, and he, through his research with lizards, he's trying to find a way to regrow his lost arm.
Yeah.
Which in addition to helping him, could help out a lot of people that are like injured in accidents or injured in war. Which that can have a lot of.
He actually lost his arm in Vietnam originally, if I remember correctly.
I think that's what it was. I don't have... I could go over there and pull it, but I don't...
Yeah. He for reference, he was like a medic in Vietnam.
Yeah, I don't want to pull the fucking big-ass omnibus off the shelf.
But basically, during like a bomb going off, like it caused him to lose his arm. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because, that was one of the few things they had to retcon for him over the years.
Sliding time scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he comes up with this serum and... As all great scientists do, he tests the shit on himself.
Yeah.
Which, initially, it grows his arm back. So he's like... he considers it a success. Except that he turns into this, like... this lizard-like creature.
Yeah.
And, Spidey obviously has to fight him. I want to say that first fight actually takes place down in Florida.
Yeah. This is actually one of the first times where Peter leaves New York.
That's when he makes the fucking raft out of the webs. It's just like, fucking, what? What is this?
I made a raft out of webs. Because that's how stuff works.
Yeah. Great physics on that one. But Lizard's been I really like him. He's done some cool stuff over the years. I really liked how he looked during the Todd McFarlane run, honestly.
Yeah.
It's one of the very few things I like from McFarlane's run with his art style.
Because that's when he made him look actually like a fucking lizard when he mutates.
Yeah, he just looks fucking crazy, like scary looking when when McFarlane draws him.
Because, like, for a long time, the classic look of him was like, he looked kind of like the creature from the Black Lagoon, despite the fact that he's supposed to be a fucking lizard man. And to be fair, like, I argue he's one of the more interesting villains because while the lizard is evil, Dr. Connors is not. It's very much like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, or like the Hulk. Where, like, basically, if ever, because at the end of the first story, Peter creates, like, an antidote that allows, like, Connors to revert back to his human form, which actually allowed Kurt to become one of Spider-Man's few allies. And in fact, Kurt has helped Peter out a lot over the years. In fact, I want to say he goes to Kurt when he gets the six arms.
Yeah, he does. I actually have that issue back there. Yeah, I that's one thing I really like about Connors is just that he's not always evil. It's not always like he's always constantly like twirling the mustache villain like. Yeah. He's a very complicated figure in the comic mythos, And he's always kind of going back and forth, kind of like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type deal.
Yeah.
About like who's more in control at times? Is it Connors or is it the Lizard? I don't always agree with what he does, what they make him do while he's the Lizard. Like the shit when he ate his own kid. Which
I was gonna get into that.
I was just about to say during that whole spiel because that was That was ass. That was not a good storyline at all. Well, that was Grim Hunt, wasn't it?
Oh my god. I fucking hate...
Fucking Grim Hunt. We need to review
Well, actually, technically, that was the Gauntlet. The mini-series leading into Grim Hunt.
One of these days, I need to sit down and read that, because you gave me all those issues. I need to sit down and read it, and we can review it. I've heard so much bad things about that whole storyline.
For those of you who I'm wondering what we're talking about, basically, Dan Slott wanted to create like a whole family for Craven, because we'd had his sons, and so he also I want to say during Brand New Day. Well, actually, no, I don't think he created Craven's daughter, but during Brand New Day they introduced Craven's wife and daughter, which is really weird for me because Craven had like a mistress named Calypso, but I don't want to go too much into that. But basically, like...
Shit's complicated. Hashtag comic books won't go there.
Basically, like, they were messing with Spider-Man's villains to make them more dangerous. Except most of the shit they did was really fucking stupid with the villains. The only one I think that was any good was the Sandman one.
Yeah, it wasn't like they did stuff to it that was, like, cool.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like... A great example is the PS4 does it well, where you have Ock augmenting all these other villains with his own tech and stuff. Like, that's actually done really, really well.
Yeah.
Whereas this just wasn't done well.
But the problem with the Lizard, if I were to give any problems, is most of the time his plan is just, I want to turn humanity into lizards. I want to make green lizardy men and women, and
which is what it is in the fucking first Tasman movie.
Which apparently is... Like, people were like, that's his plan? I'm like, what else did you think he was going to do?
Y'all haven't read a lot of comic books with the lizard, have you?
Like, he's a giant lizardy man thing. What else is he going to fucking do?
Yeah, like I said, one thing I really love, and I can't stress this enough, it's just the design. Yeah. And like I said, McFarlane does a great job of drawing him. There's a lot of other artists that are also really good at drawing him that he's fucking terrifying looking.
Yeah. Like... Especially
like with the red eyes,
with the red eyes and the giant fangs.
I'm actually gonna find that.
Which says something how scary he is when he.
I'm actually gonna find that trade. Give me a second.
Do you care if I talk about him in the animated series?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because honestly, I think he's really one of the few that's really super interesting of the Rogues Gallery they use in there. In fact, the Lizard is actually the first supervillain Spider-Man fights in the Spider-Man TAS animated series.
Do you remember what story that was?
That was Torment. It should be the first one, the very first one.
I just saw it. Looking for that cover.
But where is I going? Oh yeah,
Big Hair Mary Jane.
In that, Kurt is actually Peter's professor because Peter's a grad student in the animated series, and he is studying. Well, he's trying to regrow his arm. He is studying this thing known as the Neogenic Recombinator, which is basically this gun that does whatever the fuck it wants.
God, I'm really looking for this one cover, and I swear to fuck it is in this.
It should be in the Torment story arc because like
they really like did some cool coloring with this release.
Yeah.
I don't know if that color actually is popping.
Yeah, because I have the hardcover of the first Torment, but it's not. A lot of the art does not look super great because the color's really shit in it.
Also, just reminds me I need to icon this with 80s Mary Jane.
Oh my god, you gotta show them that fucking picture of fucking Craven with his head blown off that was in that. Which to me, I gotta hate that because like they did so many stories where Craven came back from the grave. After Craven blew his own.
I'm really hoping this isn't a variant cover, the one I'm thinking of.
I don't think it is.
It's the one where he's like on the cover.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean.
God, I can't get over Mary Jane's big 80s hair.
Yeah. But basically,
I love it so much.
Yeah. But basically, Kurt plays a really big role throughout most of
Hobgoblin.
Throughout most of
Ghost Rider show. I forgot Ghost Rider was in this.
Of the 95 cartoon. Particularly helping Peter when he starts mutating into a giant man spider. And also, they do the same thing in the cartoon that happened to Kurt during Secret Wars, where the Beyonder brings him to Battle World. And, although in that story, he's like the Lizard almost like most of the time. but he gains some ability to control himself as the lizard. But basically, Peter and Kurt spend a lot of the series working together during the TAS. Mostly because again, Kurt lives in New York, whereas a lot of the problems with with Kurt is that he lives in Florida for a good chunk of the original series run. Nowadays, he's up in New York, but yeah, I like the lizard myself. My only real complaint
Fucking
with
Morbius. God damn.
the living vampire.
Forgot he was in this.
Which, get ready, because we're going to talk... Speaking of TS, get ready, because we're going to do the entire Morbius arc from Spider-Man TAS, since it's on Disney+. Also, I can't help... There's this fat-looking dude in this that looks like the fucking McFarlane's clown. That fucking stupid character from Spawn. I hate that character so much.
It's not in here.
But,
So I'm just gonna Google it. But I thought it was in here. I could have sworn that was like the cover.
yeah.
Which again, I'm wondering if I'm just thinking of a variant.
There's not really much...
May well be.
Yeah. There's not very much more we can say about Tasm Lizard, since we've already talked about that character pretty in depth in our when we
check out the Tasm review we did with Doug.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem with the Tasm Lizard is that we don't really get to see his wife or Billy, aka one of the reasons why Connors is able to outwin the lizard is because
there it is.
Of his ties to...
You know why? It wasn't Amazing Spider-Man. It was that was the adjectiveless Todd McFarlane omnibus.
Gotcha,
If I had pulled out the big hardback, it would have showed up.
Oh, so if you got an Amazing by Todd McFarlane...
Wow, and Jesus Christ, I don't know if that'll actually even show up with how bright that is. Give me a second.
But,
there we go. That's better.
But yeah,
just the way he draws the lizard is like, holy fuck.
Well, there he looks like a fucking lizard. Like, a lot of times,
they draw him dumb, stupid looking.
Yeah.
I wish with Tasm they just given him the fucking snout.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. The Tasm lizard design is fucking ugly looking. I don't even understand what they were trying to do with the head. Because, everything else about him looks fine.
They're probably trying to save money.
Probably. I don't know. I think the other thing is they were afraid people would think he couldn't talk like a human if he had, the lizard face. Which, it's comic books. I don't really give a shit. I will admit the effects for, when he got his arm, and, it had that, white, almost, clear skin, and it peeled off. I thought the effects for his arm regrowing looked really cool.
Yeah, visually it was very, very good.
Now, what are your hopes with, Kurt showing up in No Way Home?
I don't think they're gonna do it based on what I saw in the show, but I was like, man, can y'all just give him the goddamn purple pants?
Yeah.
Please.
I also kind of hope that we get to actually see...
I don't know why they're so adverse to just making him look like that.
Probably a little bit, they're afraid that he'll look too much like the Hulk.
Or just give him the lab coat then.
Yeah, I would honestly wouldn't mind just
look like the goddamn comic books.
Yeah. I don't know.
They used that design for Tasm, and it looked... I mean, not Tasm, for the animated series, and it looked fucking fine.
Well, I think the other problem is, it don't help that, he gets really fucking big for no reason. Which, again, he doesn't turn to, the Hulk. He's like a werewolf. He turns in, a slightly bigger... And, no, I do not want to fucking see fucking John Jonah Jameson come into these movies and he turns into the fucking man-wolf. We don't need to see that.
This just in, Sonny developing a man-wolf movie.
Oh, God, that would be fucking terrible.
J.K. Simmons reprises his role.
I don't think they could do that because I'm pretty sure...
They bring in the dude from Spider-Man 2 that Mary Jane was engaged to. Yeah. I would actually laugh. That'd be funny as fuck.
I honestly don't think they can do that because I think they don't want to get sued by Universal because of the fact that, they...
Did they own the Wolfman copyright?
I think they do. I want to say
but it's backwards. I don't think they can get sued for that. I think Marvel actually owns the Man-Wolf copyright.
I mean, fair. Well,
just like Man-Thing. I think they own the Man-Thing copyright.
I think it's less about who owns it. I'm pretty sure more Universal will be like, fucking excuse me. That is clearly ripping off our brand.
And Disney would be like, you want to fucking get bought out too?
Well, no, technically Disney don't own that, so they would let Sony get in the hot water for that. To be fair, I'm pretty sure it's more Sony doesn't want to have to pay Universal to be like, all right, how much do I have to pay you to not to not make a fucking scene about this, Universal? A lot more than you have. That's doubtful. We own the PS5.
It's
But getting back on topic, I mostly would kind of like to see at least maybe see that like the redeeming side of Kurt in this. Although again, much like Sandman, I don't think we're gonna see the Lizard outside of his lizard self. I almost wonder, since again Lizard apparently died, that maybe Kurt sadly died, and when he did, he turned into the Lizard, and now he's no longer Kurt, but simply this beast that he now is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Like I just make him a little cooler than he was in TASM. I'm not asking for a lot on that.
Yeah. Same.
I just wish they would make him look like the comic. Like, at the end of the day, that's what I want, but I know I probably won't get it, so I'm kind of resigned to that.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, at least it's cool we get to see the Lizard in something.
Yeah. So.
Because I don't think we're ever going to see another Lizard movie.
No, probably not.
As much as I would like to see them actually get Kurt right, it's just not going to happen. But it's a shame, because, like...
Hypno Hustler movie when?
It's a shame, because, again, like, as someone who grew up watching Spider-Man TAS, like, the Lizard was, like, such a big part of, like, that show.
Well, I always remember playing the game on the PC, and they had the model for him.
Also, as
and just being like, holy hell, like, it looked awesome in that.
It was really weird how popular he was in the 90s. Like, outside of just because he was in TAS, like, I never really got the popularity of the Lizard.
I don't know. So,
I guess it's time to get into the big boys.
Let's move on to Doc Ock. We'll save Gobby for last.
Also, I kind of wanted to save Ock for last just because it feels like he's going to be, like, the actual main villain of that plot.
I know how we can do this. We'll go to Wheel Decide.
You know what? I like that.
We'll spin the wheel. WheelDecide.com.
We are so good at this podcasting thing.
Okay, really?
Over 100 episodes and we just do stupid shit.
Okay.
And we are going to end up on... I guess we're doing Ock first. Alright, okay.
Probably one of the villains we were really the most excited about seeing in the trailer.
Mainly just because, like, I'm sorry, Alfred Molina as Doc Ock is, like...
Perfection.
Like I would never really want them to read...
Hell, I bought a Jonah Arc movie that he narrates just because he's narrating it. And it even says on the back, it's like Alfred Molina of Spider-Man 2.
Like... And I know, like Spider-Man 2 changes a lot about Ock in that, but, like, at the same time, he was
great.
He was great, and he was...
It was a great interpretation of the character.
Yeah. So, anyway, Dr. Otto Octavius, and notice how neither of us fucking laugh like we're fucking 16 years old, was a scientist who studied in radiation, but in order to protect himself, he actually developed a set of mechanical arms that would allow him to handle the chemicals without, the need for getting himself doused in radiation. Unfortunately, due to a lab accident and a nuclear explosion that somehow didn't give him cancer, bonded the mechanical arms and the harness to his spine, which now allowed him to control the arms with his mind, and unfortunately doing so drove him to the brink of insanity, where he became known as Dr. Octopus. When TAS was also voiced...
What are we going to call this guy?
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good. Let's take it.
Dr. Squid.
I got it. Doc Ock.
I like it.
But I love that. I love that little sequence so much.
Fun fact, he was actually voiced by the same guy who did Alfred in Batman TAS.
I know that.
Yeah. Aaron Zimbalist Jr., which... Chef's kiss. I loved his Dr. Octopus. It's one of the reasons why Doc Ock is like one of my favorite villains. Is because of TAS.
Carnage Ock in a movie when?
Oh, that would be...
I'd probably be like, you know what, I'm going to hide under the table now.
Yeah.
Like, going underneath the chairs, boys. I can't handle this. I'm having flashbacks.
If they did Carnage Ock, I'd be like, the fuck are you doing?
Listen, if they did that, I would hear those sounds, and I'd be like, I'm going to leave now, boys.
Like,
yeah, I'm going to fucking leave.
No, thanks.
Like, nope, I'm out, boys. Sorry, not happening tonight.
Yeah.
It was nice watching the movie with y'all.
Again, he's voiced, Aaron Zimbalist Jr. reprised his role as Dr. Octopus for that. So, I've always liked Doc Ock because, like, we brought this up before. I feel like of Spider-Man's big three villains, Venom, Doc Ock, and Green Goblin, each of them represents what Peter could have been if he didn't have such great responsibility. With Goblin, it's if Peter, was too, would just let go and just be pure evil. Venom is, of course, all power, no responsibility. For me, Doc Ock represents if Peter didn't have such dedication to his science and wasn't
as arrogant
about
his intelligence.
And if he were
specifically
arrogant,
going with the comic version, because I would obviously say the Raimi version isn't like that, but we're talking about the comic version right now.
But Otto very much is very arrogant, and that actually deals with the fact that as a child he was his father was an alcoholic redneck, and his mother was more or less one of those mothers that just didn't know when to cut the apron strings. And in doing so, it gave him an inferiority complex, particularly because he was very overweight for a child. And so it made it like he wanted to prove to everyone that he was this genius and that he would be, mankind's great savior in a sense. And so, he always wanted to prove that. And Doc Ock was actually one of the first really big threats that Peter... he's actually the first villain to defeat Spider-Man. In Amazing Four, Amazing Spider-Man issue 4, he manages to defeat Spider-Man, which makes Spider-Man turn tail and run, which actually makes Peter almost want to give up being Spider-Man until the Human Torch is like, stop being a bitch. Get the fuck back in there. And of course, Peter won the day, mostly because even with Doc Ock's great arms, he's still a flabby, overweight, fat bastard, and Peter just, knocks him the fuck out.
Yeah. I would really say that probably one of the most defining things about Doc Ock is just that in addition to the Green Goblin, he's probably one of the top 2 villains in Spidey's whole career.
Yeah.
Especially for a long period, Green Goblin was dead.
Yeah.
And, so Ock was kind of like, the main bad guy for a long time. And it really shows just how many interactions they've had.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into Superior because I think that comic sucks. And you can fight me on that. I don't care.
It's not really in the scope of we want to talk about.
We're not talking about Superior. Maybe one day we'll review it when I actually fucking torture myself by reading it.
I need to get the trades out and eventually just read it so I can
have one of them. I just bought it when it was on discount somewhere.
The problem is I just don't want to fucking read it because it annoys me. But
I just don't want to read because it's Dan Slott. I don't like Dan Slott. I don't like Dan, and I don't buy his shit, and I don't read about it. There you go.
And of course, Ogg is also pretty infamous for he's the leader of the Sinister Six. In fact, he's the creator of the idea of the Sinister Six. Basically, after getting his ass handed to him by Spider-Man numerous times and going to jail, he met a bunch of other...
got fed up with this shit.
Ogg got fed up with this shit and gathered a group of bad guys consisting of himself,
Craven,
Mysterio,
Green Goblin.
Green. Yeah, no. Gobby was not.
Oh yeah, he wasn't. My bad.
He formed the Sinister 12. Sandman, and Vulture, and Electro.
I actually have that issue. I have an original of that issue. It's not in very good shape, but I have an original one of it.
I have a version of it in Marvel Essentials or Spider-Man Essentials #2. Yeah. But,
I also have it in the Marvel Omnibus back there, so I don't have to actually read the floppy of that thing. That thing is ancient.
But basically, he got this group together. His original plan was they were going to all just basically jump Spider-Man and defeat him that way. But basically, none of them could agree on what they were going to do. And so basically, Ock instead decided to change his plan that Spider-Man would have to fight every single one of them in a row, getting up to Doc Ock. Because he would hope that this would wear Spider-Man out, and he would eventually
be able to just kill him.
Of course, everyone's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man can't just be beat by going 6 rounds. Motherfucker can fight Firelord to a standstill while going 24 hours against him. So, of course, Peter stands triumphant. Of course, it's also the 60s, so, Peter had to win regardless. Unless this was like a 2-parter. And he persevered. That issue is also famous because that's the issue where Spider-Man just randomly lost his powers for no fucking reason. I don't think they've ever really established why they disappeared. I think it's kind of supposed to be implied like it's a mental thing, that like Peter psychologically made his powers turn off. But regardless, there's that.
He's got anxiety.
Yeah.
He's trying his best.
Of course, people probably also remember Doc Ock's time, the issue where he pretended to be the master planner, the one where he stole that isotope that Peter needed to help cure Aunt May of radiation poisoning.
He indirectly kills George Stacy.
Right, he's also responsible for George Stacy's death, which is partially his fault, partially Spider-Man's, because Spider-Man created this web fluid that made it so that the arms no longer listened to Doc Ock's commands. Comic books, he also almost killed Black Cat, which led Peter to finally just having enough of Doc Ock. He just rips the fucking arms out of Doc Ock's torso. He only ever did it that one fucking time and never did it.
Well, remember, he was also killed by Craven. He was dead for a while because Craven killed him.
I was getting to there.
Not Craven killed him. Kane killed him for a little bit.
Yeah. He also, for a while, he was really dangerous because he had created... he got new arms which were made of adamantium because he didn't want Peter to rip them off again. And then, of course, during the Clone Saga, he was sadly killed by Craven after helping...
Kane.
Kane.
I made the same mistake. That's why
you said it, and I was like, no.
Yeah, that was on me. I fucked that one.
Because I was even like, no, don't.
Well, we were talking about Craven just a minute ago, so it just... On my brain.
Well, because even in my head, I'm like, it's gonna say Kane, say Kane, say Kane. Craven. Fuck. But, he is of course one of the victims of Kane to show off how super cool and badass Kane is. The guy, he's so cool. He has so many powers. Oh.
I will pay someone to link me to a cosplay of that I can buy. I would love to have that original Kane costume because it looks so extra as fuck.
He's Kane. He's so cool, Kyle. Kane has many powers.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
We're almost to an hour.
And if you're wondering how Doc Ock came back to life, he got resurrected by fucking ninjas.
Catch that comic book's not gonna go there.
Yeah. That's also notable because he was replaced by a female character for a while, Carolyn Trainer. That didn't really stick very well, but more or less, he has been Doc Ock has been one of Spider-Man's greatest rogues for a very long time, and probably will be forever.
One of the most recognizable at the very...
absolutely.
To say the very least. Probably one of the most recognizable.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Again, he was super popular. He was one of the first villains that Spider-Man fought in Spider-Man DAS, in the hilariously named episode Doc Ock, Armed and Dangerous. Because, comics. But yeah, your thoughts?
Like I said, I'm excited to see him again in No Way Home. I'm really glad they got Alfred Molina back, and from what I understand, Alfred Molina was had a lot of fun with it, which I'm really happy about because he seems like a super nice guy.
Yeah.
And I really loved his interpretation of it in the movie, even if it wasn't super close to comic books in terms of being blow for blow the same. At the end of the day, it was a fun interpretation, and it worked really well for that universe. Yeah. I'm really excited to see what they do with him in this.
My biggest hope is he tries to marry Aunt May like that special, like that classic episode. Look, Aunt May is super hot in this universe. And Alfred Molina would be like...
Listen, the best parody of that I've ever seen was that it was the Spider-Verse one with Liv. That was fucking...
Oh my God.
I wish I could find that again, because I would love to print that out and just have that framed, because it's so funny. I love it so much.
Also, I love that just because that was a great homage to the fact that there was a female Doc Ock.
Yeah.
But, yeah, honestly, I don't really have, any big hopes for Doc Ock. Him being on screen is fucking enough for me. The fact that we got one of the best Doc Ocks ever back, and he's gonna be just there, I'm like, I don't really care what you do with him.
I like Peter.
Oh my God. Let's see in the trailer, and he just, hello. I'm like, oh, I'm so happy.
That was when I started hitting the wall.
Yeah, I remember that. So yeah, that's really it. There's plenty of Doc Ock trades that Marvel has released. They're probably gonna release a Doc Ock trade sometime.
Yeah.
As a side, Marvel, I know you don't really watch these. Please release stuff where he's Doc Ock. Don't just release Superior Spider-Man shit. Give us actual Doc Ock. I know Superior printed money. Give actual Doc Ock shit. Because people are going to be really confused if you just release Superior Spider-Man.
And don't give the Dan Slott people shit. Nobody, they already have enough.
Well, especially because every time they keep bringing that character back, you get diminishing returns because there's not much else you can do with that character.
Yeah. Stop enabling Dan Slott.
And of course, we saved the best for last.
I want to get that on a shirt. Stop enabling Dan Slott. I would wear that a lot. I would wear that to a comic book store and not even care.
you know, that'd be real fun for me when I'm going in there and you're causing fights. I'm just like,
I wouldn't cause fights. I'm like, I'm not arguing with you because I know I'm right.
it's fair.
So I'll just be an asshole.
And I'll just be like, so I want to buy this comic. I don't know him.
Anyway,
But anyway,
moving on to who I consider probably one of the greatest comic book villains ever created, in my opinion.
And I'm sorry, I know people love Venom. I'm sorry. Spider-Man's greatest arch nemesis
Is the Green Goblin.
Or
Really,
really...
Norman Osborn.
Yeah, I was about to say...
I almost said Norman Defoe.
Norman Defoe.
To mix them together. Well, because Willem Dafoe basically is Green Goblin.
He is. I know people are like, well, he doesn't have the hair. I'm like, have you seen his
Who the fuck cares, man? That voice.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry.
That voice is just...
Defoe as Green Goblin was
fucking great.
It's like Jack Nicholson as the Joker. You can't...
How are you going to compete with that?
Yeah, unless you get, an even...
No wonder they didn't try to recast him this time around. They said, fuck this, just get Defoe back.
Well, not only that, I'm pretty sure, in order to get Raimi on board, he was like, I'm not coming on board unless you get Molina and Defoe. I'm not helping you make this movie unless I get my Golden Boys. Well, okay, his Golden Boys and Toby. But
his Golden Boys Toby. Also Danny Elfman.
Well, to be fair...
Danny Elfman's working on him with Multiverse.
Well, I'm pretty sure Danny Elfman's on Disney Speed Dial, because they've used him a lot, not just him.
It's fucking Danny Elfman, man. You need a score done. He called Danny Elfman.
Yeah, well, not like that, they can get Hans Zimmer,
because Hans Zimmer did the TASM sound. No, actually, yeah, he did the second TASM soundtrack. I have the first one, which is Danny Elfman. No, it's not Danny Elfman. I think it's Hans Zimmer on both. I have to look it up.
They got John Williams on Speed Dial because they own Star Wars.
Listen, I love John, but John's getting up there.
I mean, obviously, but I'm sorry. He may be getting up there. I'm pretty sure if he took a shit on a music
Okay, Amazing Spider-Man 1 was James Horner, and then Hans Zimmer did Amazing Spider-Man 2.
What did James Horner do before that?
Titanic.
Oh, I'm thinking he did I'm thinking a Western he might have done.
He scored a lot.
I mean, granted,
I'll have to show you though. I have that soundtrack on blue and red vinyl, limited edition, 500 copies.
I know so many fucking soundtrack guys from movies, but I can't. They all blend in my head.
Anyway, Goblin. Like I said, for me, the Green Goblin has been my go-to. If I think of a Spider-Man villain, I'm gonna immediately go Green Goblin.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of that was because my first exposure to him was through the Raimi movie. And then I went back and read a lot of the classic comics that he was in. Because my uncle had the issue where he finally reveals to Peter that he's Norman Osborn. And granted, it wasn't actual Amazing issue. It was Marvel Tales, which was a reprint brand they were using. But I remember reading those issues over and over and over again.
Yeah.
For me, it was and then I had the TASM. I keep saying TASM. TAS. I had those episodes on tape.
Which
I remember watching those a lot.
TAS ain't really the best way to watch Green Goblin.
The way he looked, it was really what I was into. But
except that his voice was really terrible, He-Man. Yeah.
I was I was trying to steer because I didn't want to hear that joke one more time.
I'm sorry, that's what he sounds like.
I was like, damn it, I don't want to hear this joke.
I know in the comics they say that the Green Goblin has this really high-pitched voice, but that was a little too much.
Defoe is, to me, is the...
Defoe's voice. Defoe's is, in my opinion, how I hear him.
It's just again, when I think of... If you were to ask me what villain has done the most fucked up shit to Peter's life, I don't think Norman's got any competition. I mean, yeah, the whole thing with Ock and Peter swapping brains, that's up there.
The only other thing is maybe Craven burying him alive.
Yeah, but even, I don't think it can top Norman, killing his girlfriend. Killing his unborn kid. Or killing causing Mary Jane to have a miscarriage.
Pretending to kill his Aunt May.
Couple times.
Kidnapping
him, drugging him, and trying to convince him to become his son.
Killing his brother.
Yeah, killing Ben. Becoming Carnage at one point.
Yeah.
The whole shit with Kindred recently.
Yeah.
The dude has done so much, shit to Peter in his life for the pure purpose of you got the better of me and I can't stand it. Yeah. And it's
and one of the things I think makes their relationship so, because it's not just Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, it's also Peter Parker and Norman Osborn.
It's a personal thing.
Yeah,
they bring that up during Clone Saga, you know, where there's... I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm not going to look it up because it's going to take me a while to find it. But if you haven't read the end of Clone Saga, I would read that when Norman shows up because it's a great... Even if you're not a big fan of the clone stuff, it's a great moment for just Norman and Peter.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, Peter... Like, they're fighting and Norman's giving this big monologue. And he's just talking about, like, you know, I've done so much stuff to you. What do I have to do to make you stop getting up?
And Peter basically is just like, I get up to spite you.
Yeah.
Like, because you think this is about you and me as Spider-Man and the Green Goblin.
This is about Peter Parker and Norman Osborn.
He rips Norman's mask off. While he's like, this is about you, and this is about me.
And we're going to finish. And again, they've gone back and forth so many times.
To the point where Norman is, like, actually wanted to kill himself and make Peter actually be the one to do it.
Yeah, and it's just... Like I said, they've just... There's so much history with those two. I mean, I think it's the only thing that even remotely comes close to Batman and the Joker.
Yeah.
I think Peter and the Goblin, that is the only thing that even fucking remotely comes close to
And
that.
even then, Joker doesn't fucking care who Batman is.
Yeah.
For him, it's purely about Batman, because, I mean, granted...
With Norman, he knows, and he just uses it to fuck with Peter even more.
Yeah,
Like, the whole stuff with Clone Saga was he was pulling the strings the whole time. Like... That's just a fucking ludicrous amount of insanity.
Not only that, you know, even when he's dead, you know,
he's still pulling the strings.
Yeah, like he steered Harry towards the path of becoming the Green Goblin.
It's why I will always argue that, because I know people are like, well, Doc Ock, you know, and I'm like, Doc Ock has, as we just said, Doc Ock's done a lot of cool stuff, and a lot of like crazy bad stuff to Peter.
Yeah,
nothing for me is ever going to top that just the level of personal that this battle between the Goblin and Spider-Man has. Not just with him. I mean, again, he steered Harry and geared it that Harry and Peter were going at it for years.
Yeah.
And then if you read the MC2 stuff, Normie is like just driven to try to kill Peter because he wants to avenge his dad and his grandfather.
Yeah.
There's just so, and then if you really want to start splitting hairs, he's partially the reason the Hobgoblin exists.
Yeah.
Like,
and even if that was on accident.
Yeah, but it's like there's just so much stuff to dive into with those two that you could almost write a college level term paper on
about
it.
Like just
the symbolism of those two.
Yeah, which is weird because, you know, when you think spiders, you don't really think goblins.
Yeah,
but it works. And I think the thing that makes it work so well is just how much
depth
Lee and like other writers on the Amazing titles tied the two together so intrinsically, which is so weird when you think about it, because Peter only knew who Norman was, and even Stan and Ditko themselves only knew who the Goblin was in the issue they fucking decided to reveal who the fuck he was. Because, like, from issue 14 to issue 39, the issue where he, you know, debuted as the Goblin, or Norman as the Goblin, they had no idea who the fuck he was. But it worked. And, you know, as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah. Moving on to the movies, it's very, very close. You know,
I was gonna say, you don't even really need to.
Yeah, you don't even. I don't even need to elaborate. They're very, very close. There's some minute differences, but they're very close. The biggest thing I was excited about for him in this movie was
the purse.
No, not the purse. Not the man purse. I like that the man purse is there. It was that trailer, seeing the fucking Raimi armor after all these years, seeing it again. And I know it's very, very polarizing. You have a lot of people out there that do not like the Raimi armor, and you have people like me that love the Raimi armor.
My only real complaint with the Raimi armor is I wish that he had purple in the armor.
Which they kind of do. There's purple highlights too.
Yeah, there's purple highlights, but I kind of wish, like, maybe like the chest had it, like at least to give the idea of the tunic that he has on the costume. But
I remember seeing that in the trailer. Like, I was watching that. I was in the meat cooler at work. I was on shift when it dropped, and I was like, I couldn't find you. I was like, I gotta watch this shit now. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there watching it, right? And I'm in the cooler, you know, watching it, and he showed up, and dude, I about fucking screamed because I was just like, yes.
No.
Like there's been leaks, you know, we see that he gets a different costume at some point in the movie, but I'm glad that when he first shows up, he's gonna have that armor.
What?
Because for me, like, I love the comic style armor.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the costume he has in the comics. I love this one just as much.
Yeah, I would argue as well. Like I said, I have like some small complaints with the outfit, but like as a whole, I don't really mind it. I know people are like, "Well, he looks like a Power Ranger," and I'm like, "What do you fucking want?" Like, have you seen how he fucking looks in the comics? That's not going to translate into on the big screen.
Remember, they tried that.
Yeah, they tried it.
It didn't
looked
work.
Fucking terrible.
Yeah, it didn't fucking work.
But you know, regardless of your feelings of the train going,
as the train goes past.
It's
a shame that didn't get rolled by when we were talking about Doc Ock. That would have been perfect.
Apologies for the shake on the camera too, because it's probably gonna. It'll be fine.
I'm making sure it doesn't fall.
Okay,
keep going.
That's fair.
Again, shame that didn't roll by when we were talking about Ock. That would have been perfect.
Yeah, regardless, for me that's how I think he looks anyways. Like both are the Green Goblin to me. Honestly, I'm curious to see. I kind of hope that like my idea is that eventually Norman will succeed Ock as like the leader of this ragtag group that they're making.
In the leaks I've seen, it's been that Norman is the one in charge, which I'm like would make sense.
Because I do kind of like the idea that like especially because the Ock of the Raimi Spider-Man films, he's not really a bad person.
Whereas Norman, it's the opposite.
Yeah, I think maybe towards the end of it, I think the arms will get the better of Otto. The only other idea I have is maybe that Norman will control Otto as like a puppet via the arms, which would not be something that Ock would do or Norman would be against doing. But regardless, I'm just happy to see him come back because honestly, it's such a shame that like. They've tried to do different things with the Green Goblin. They even, like, to the point where in TASM, they tried to make Harry the Green Goblin. And it's just never worked. And maybe that's just because of the writing, but, like...
I would argue with to have Harry as the Goblin, you need to have the story that leads up to it.
Yeah.
Like, I think Raimi did a good enough job with it. I just think there was just so much shit going on in Spider-Man 3. There wasn't enough time devoted to it. Like it is in the comics. In the comics, it's a very emotional and gut-wrenching thing to read.
Especially because Harry tries so hard to not be the Goblin, but he
keeps just going back to it.
Because, Harry's Goblin is very much a tragic character. This figure that is just, yet again, another of Norman's various legacies that he used to try and destroy Peter. It's certainly better than what he tried to do with his other children, which thankfully they fucking finally retconned that.
Yeah, I'm really glad they did. Finally, since past is not canon.
Now we can just finally fucking fix one more day. It'd be nice. Well, I feel like they're getting to it. I know they didn't want to do it with Spencer, but I feel like they're trying so hard to fix it. Like they don't. I think they're too. At this point, they're so nervous that they're gonna like. Get rid of the people that have been fans of the books that were, fans of, like,
All they need to do is take one look at the internet and just be like, there's more people that are fans of the old school stuff.
Yeah. Like, to the point where I even think newer fans, like, a lot of them, like, have grown up. Because a lot of people, that was their jumping on point. I think even now, they're just like, especially with Spencer and the fact that, like, so many people have pointed out the problems with how Peter has been written for the last decade. Actually, 2 decades now, almost. Like something needs to change. But anyway, recommendations for stories.
Like I said, I would recommend the one where he reveals to Peter who he is.
Oh, that's Amazing 39.
Yeah,
that's crazy to get. Yeah,
that's an absolute classic.
The
night Gwen Stacy died. That's another pivotal one.
I also
for Green Goblin for Spidey's history.
I also recommend the issues where Harry gets hooked to drugs because that's also pretty very heavily much the Green Goblin. It's very hard to find, but if you could get your hands on it, the JMD Mateus story, Death in the Family. The art's really bad in it, but the story's really fucking good. Like I've always told people, the art's really bad, but it's
one of the few mentions of Mayday of 616 continuity dying.
Basically, it's the story where basically Norman wants to die, and he's tormenting Peter so that Peter will finally go over the edge and kill him. and we get this really interesting little moment. I mean, granted, it's a good story overall, but like, for me, the scene because a lot of people will say it's basically Spider-Man's version of the Killing Joke, which
I remember we've discussed this before on the show. I don't remember what episode, but we have discussed this.
But basically, and why I mean, it has similar ideas to the Killing Joke. I actually kind of think this does it better because it's about Peter and Norman just sitting down and realizing, man, this is some fucked up shit we're in. Like, and for me, it really gets who Norman is as a character, and more or less how Peter has to learn to live with the fact that Norman knows who he is. I think it's very good. Of course, the story where Norman tries to draw Peter into becoming his son and heir, which admittedly is basically just the temptation of Jesus, but honestly, it's a really good story because it's like Peter just wants to give up, but then like he finally just fights back at the last moment. Which also is hilarious considering that Willem Dafoe was also in a story about the temptation of Jesus.
Yeah, real smooth on that one.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was just coincidence because that story.
Funny as hell though.
Yeah,
that's a coincidence.
Yeah, because that story came out before the movie. Yeah, like that. There's just so many trades of Green Goblin stuff just because of how big of an influence Norman is.
Yeah.
Although I would advise steer clear of that shit where he was the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. Or...
Oh, Dark Avengers?
Yeah, like, as much as I mean, it's cool to see Norman get to have, like, that kind of role. It never really made sense, because they're like, we want him to be, like, the Lex Luthor of the Marvel Universe, and I'm like, motherfucker dresses up like a fucking goblin and torments a dude with spider powers.
What do you mean?
There's, like, nothing much more to him. Like, that's why I like the Hobgoblin in some ways, because, like, he's not obsessed with Spider-Man. What makes Hobby interesting, despite the fact that, like, Spider-Man has such a fucking mad on him, because he's like, you're wearing that fucking costume, you gotta take it off. But, yeah, there's not a lot of stories I could recommend with Norman, just because, like, honestly, they re-release Norman Green Goblin trades all the fucking time.
They've kind of set him up to be one of the next villains. He's got to be one of the next villains in the Spider-Man the PlayStation series.
Oh, absolutely.
For Spider-Man 2. I swear to God, they are setting up to that.
Yeah.
Because in the first game, that the fucking mask is there.
Yeah.
And the password that you look at, if you actually look at it's a code, numerical code. It translates to the date when the Green Goblin first showed up in a publication in Amazing. I'm like, you guys are telling me you aren't building up to that? I don't buy that. It's just a reference. Yeah. There's no way in fuck that's just a reference.
Oh, I hope the plot is that he wants to get weed legalized.
Stop.
But you're the one who's about to get smoked, Gobby!
It's that fucking shot of Japanese Spider-Man blowing a people away.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Hopes for the movie. Listen, Dafoe is in there. I'm gonna be a happy man either way.
Like, even if this movie's kind of shit...
It's fucking Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. I'm getting more of what I want.
Not only that, we're getting, like, what's the equivalent of a Sinister Six movie. Like, even if it's not going to be super great, we're going to see Spider-Man fight the Sinister Six, and I guarantee you there's going to be a surprise villain, because there's no way they're going to just do 5 villains.
Definitely.
Like, everyone's like, oh, they're not going to do Sinister Six. I'm like, come on. You know this. Also,
They've been wanting to do that since TASM 2.
Yeah. As I said, looking at the camera, I love that because you're so far. It looks like we're almost like on a green screen, and it's like a split, just because you're so close to the camera and I'm so far back. It's really funny, but yeah, no, hell, like they're talking about like we got 3 MCU Spider-Man movies greenlit, but this movie has to do real well, despite the fact this movie. Like, this movie has been, like, what everyone's waiting for this entire fucking year.
It's already beaten out, I want to say, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and I think Endgame's ticket sales advanced. It broke that in 2 hours.
Yeah, because it, like... And not only that, like,
the trailer broke the Endgame record in less than 24 hours.
Because it's Spider-Man. Like, at the end of the day...
Sony was just like, hey, Disney, yeah, hold my beer.
Well, it's like when next year, when we get the Matt Reeves Batman film, like, who the fuck's gonna care what other superhero movies come out that year? Like, and I'm not even saying, like to be mean. It's just, it's fucking Batman. any other superhero.
It's like printing my own money.
Yeah, like
doesn't matter if it's bad. It's like printing my own money.
Yeah, like even if fuck, I'm not really defending Batman v Superman, but like, it had fucking Batman and Superman in it. Regardless of your feelings on it, it printed DC and Warner Brothers a shit ton of money.
So, your hopes, basically.
I hope it's
more Defoe.
More Defoe, and I hope we're getting what we think we're getting. Like, I'm pretty sure we are, because listen, it would be insanely suicidal of both Sony and Marvel, especially when they've been talking about wanting to make a live-action Spider-Verse film, to not just fucking do it. And even if it's only like 30 minutes of this film...
Again, before anybody says anything, because that's the leaked time, be like, that's not enough. Darth Vader's is in A New Hope for a total of 8 fucking minutes.
Yeah, like...
He's only, in the original trilogy, I want to say his combined screen time is like 36 minutes.
Yeah. And
30 minutes in a movie
yeah.
is a lot of time. That's like roughly half of it.
Yeah. And as someone who's watched like Sentai and Kamen Rider movies where they have like 200 fucking Sentai / Kamen Rider characters on screen and most of them don't even fucking do nothing, let me tell you, I fucking am happy regardless of the fact I get to see one of my favorite suits just on the screen makes me happy. Like, and again, it prints fucking money. People have wanted to see them put all 3 Spider-Man on screen.
The amount of hype this thing's gotten.
Yeah. You know,
even before the trailer dropped.
And even then, like, I don't think you and I will be that disappointed. Like, because at the end of the day, we're watching a Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
On the big screen. Like, even when
it's gonna be my turn to start a round of applause, though. If Toby's in it, given he started one last time for J.K. Simmons, it's gonna be my turn to start an applause.
Oh, that was so unfucking embarrassing when I did it, though. Like, it's like, I want you all to know, I didn't have any plans on doing that when I...
No, he just did. I knew it was coming. I knew J.K. Simmons was in it, but I didn't know where.
And I just fucking stood up and I started...
Because we heard the voice.
Yeah. And then everyone else was like, yeah! Which I guarantee you, half the people in that theater were like, yeah, why are we clapping? Why are we clapping?
New fans looking at the new villains. I don't know who. I don't have any of these people on.
I'm like, who you are? Meanwhile, the fucking
this movie ain't for you.
Yeah,
this movie's for us.
Like, I feel bad because I feel like I don't think this movie was supposed to happen when it happened. So
you think there was just fan demand, and Sony was
like,
well,
so like we're gonna have.
I guess we're reshooting.
Yeah, especially because this movie went through heavy reshoots.
Well, and I know Holland said the script they changed it a lot on set. And I'm like, could be good, could be bad thing. I don't know. Remains to be seen.
I mean, like even when you and I had issues with Far From Home,
it was okay.
We still enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. So.
But anyway, I think that's gonna wrap it up for this one.
Hope you guys enjoyed us just kind of like talking about the villains. Hopefully you learned something. You picked up some recommendations and stuff to read or check out. At the very least, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there you could check out that people go way more in depth than we did. You know, probably they have a little more time than we do. But
yeah, and probably after this one goes up, the next one you're gonna be seeing is of course us and like 7 people crammed in the car.
God, we need to get a head count. I need to start a group chat. Be like, who is going this night? I need to know now.
Because I'm sorry, you're gonna be in this review because we're never gonna have this chance again.
Have this many motherfuckers in a vehicle with us.
But anyway,
we're
guys,
gonna have to put the back seat down.
Yeah.
Because you're only fitting in my car.
Yeah. No. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, guys, like I said, it's gonna wrap it up for this Nick. Let's remember the hyphen. When we meet next, it's gonna be, of course, us taking a look at Spider-Man No Way Home. But until then, guys, I'm Zongetsu134.
And as always, I'm Average Joe Squad.
As always, we ask you,
remember the hyphen.
And take care.